needs to be disclosed as well. First, and most importantly, one of the escaped suspects has been identified with a large degree of confidence. This individual is most likely none other than Konstantin Malyushka, an infamous Russian terrorist and war criminal that has been at large since his 2014 prison break from the Siberian Gulag. Secondly, it is believed that Mario was unaware that he had incriminating footage of him. This is because as he was approaching the house where he was arrested, he spoke to someone, presumably over a call, and said, "If they get me, activate the failsafe." He assumed we had no evidence against him, and so made arrangements for all evidence to be destroyed if he was caught. These facts are highly relevant to the rest of the situation, along with the major incident that followed. On August 9, 2026, an operation was conducted in an attempt to capture members of the Elma crime network. This operation was partially successful. In the morning hours of the day, Mario was taken into custody. Later that day, Konstantin and his unidentified accomplice were both confronted as well at the secondary location, but they escaped. The only lead on these individuals was their car and its license plate, but the car could not be tracked after it sped off. Mario was interrogated the following day and refused to give any information. And then on August 13, 2026, 3 days later, the car in question was located. At 7:42 p.m. it was detected by a traffic camera seen crossing the Alexander Hamilton Bridge onto the island of Manhattan. Throughout the next hour, the car was seen by more cameras as it traveled through traffic towards Sesame Street. At 8:40 p.m., LMO detective agents who contacted Midtown Precinct North, informing them of the situation. The precinct dispatched all available officers to intercept these dangerous suspects at all costs. At 8:46 p.m., officers arrived at Sesame Street and began searching for the targets. A few minutes later, at 8:50 p.m., gunshots rang out. The targets were using illegal machine guns and several officers were injured during the brief firefight before the targets fled in the same car as before, which had been hidden in an alleyway. A nearby resident later testified that he saw the targets loading several large packages into the vehicle. The targets fled the scene, and one of them continued to fire at the pursuing officers through the now messing back windshield of the car, forcing officers to maintain distance. Throughout the next 37 minutes, the targets continued to flee in the direction of Newark, New Jersey. More officers were diverted to the chase in an attempt to stop the vehicle and apprehend the targets, but the vehicle opened fire whenever officers got too close. A currently uncounted number of bystanders were injured in the crossfire of this chase. At 9:32 p.m., the suspect's vehicle reached its destination. Upon reaching an apartment complex in downtown Newark, it drove through the doors and crashed directly into the lobby of the building. The suspects appeared to have left the vehicle and fled deeper into the building at this time, although their true movements were unknown. Most of the officers entered the building and began to carefully clear it, while the others began to form a perimeter. Unfortunately, the targets had already managed to escape. At 9:43 p.m., an officer who had entered the building opened the trunk of the crashed vehicle. The vehicle's trunk had been packed with several boxes full of napalm and high-grade explosives, which had been rigged to detonate when the trunk was opened. The napalm set the entire lobby ablaze in an instant, trapping all of the Midtown Precinct North officers within the blaze. The other officers at the scene rushed towards the fire in an attempt to help, but they could not have predicted how well planned this threat was. This whole chase was carefully engineered by responsible to their deaths. There were several apartments throughout the block on the first floors of every building, all owned by the same individual. After further investigation, this individual was using a false name and their true identity is completely unknown. We suspected it may be Constantine, or possibly even Almo himself. These rooms were also packed with explosives, specifically trinitral. Residents who were awoken by the initial explosion attempted to begin evacuating, but there was simply not enough time. 30 seconds later at 9:44 p.m. the flames reached one of the hot rooms, detonating the explosives within and setting off a chain reaction with all the other bomb rooms. A bystander who was recording the fire accidentally captured the explosion, and the videos have been circulating all week.
Gas station or something for cars again.
The massive resulting blast completely destroyed the entire city block and severely damaged several adjacent city blocks. It killed at least 307 people by our current death tally, as well as causing a currently unknown number of severe injuries. Investigators noted that there was a strong smell of marijuana at the site of the explosion. However, this alone was not evidence enough to prove the